All right, hello class, I'm back, and today we are going to discuss Chapter 5, Neapolitan sixth chords. So Neapolitan sixth chords are kind of similar to borrowed chords. They're chords that don't really necessarily belong in the key. Neapolitan chords come from the name, it's believed that's a reference to the Neapolitan school of 18th century opera composers. So Baroque opera composers from Naples theoretically would use these chords. And basically the Neapolitan chord is a way of turning the minor 2 chord in a major key, or the diminished 2 chord, so the supertonic in both cases, in a minor key into a major chord. That's all it is, all right? It's one chord that you have to learn and figure out how it functions in both major and minor. So, wow, that marker is terrible. Let's see if this one's any better. This one's better. Okay, so basically you're just seeing how it functions in both major and minor, and it's a way of turning that minor or diminished supertonic 2 chord into a major chord by lowering, in a major keys case, 2 of the notes, and in the minor keys case, just lowering 1 of the notes. So, in a major key, like C major, for example, all right, our 1 chord obviously is a C, C, E, G. Our minor 2 chord is going to start on a D, D, F, A. Now, if we want to turn this into a major in the Neapolitan tradition, rather than raising this F sharp, what we're going to do is lower the tonic, all right? So you're going to flat the tonic, so it's going to turn into D flat, F, and A, so that's the Neapolitan part, all right? Now, if we don't flat this top note, we get D flat, F, A natural, right? Sorry, this is it. Right? So we get an augmented chord, right? Because we would have a major third and a major third right here. So in order to make it truly Neapolitan and make it major instead of augmented, we're also going to flat the top note, all right? And that's all it is. That's what makes it Neapolitan. Now, the way we call it, why we call it a Neapolitan sixth is because 99% of the time, we'll see it in first inversion, all right? So you have A flat up here, and then our D flat, that would normally be down here, is going to travel up here, so that the F is the bass note, all right? And that's where we get our Neapolitan sixth. That's all it is. You only see it in reference to the 2 chord. It's not going to be any other chords, all right? You're not going to see it in a 3 chord. You're not going to see it in a 6 chord. Only 2s, all right? And most likely, you're going to see it in minor keys. It's actually pretty rare to see it in a major key. You're going to more than likely see it in a minor key. So, for example, if we go to A minor, the relative minor, here's our 1 chord. Oops, that should be major. So here's our 1 chord, A, C, E, right? No sharps or flats. Minor 1. So we've got A, C, E. All right? Our 2 chord is going to be B natural, D, F natural. It's going to sound like this. Right? So in minor, the 2nd chord, the supertonic, is diminished, 2 diminished. So the way to turn this into Neapolitan is actually 1 step easier. All we have to do is flat the tonic. All right, so you're going to flat the tonic. And by flat, I mean lower. If this were a B sharp, for example, you'd lower it down to B natural. So we're going to add a B flat. And then since the F is already low, we're left with a major third and a minor third, which is what we want. Just like with this one, we want major third on the bottom to make it major, and then minor third on the top to make it a major chord. So here we've got the Neapolitan part established. So you put an N, it's just going to be a large N, uppercase N, and then to make it a sixth, this B flat has to travel up here. So we have D, F, and then the B flat, which makes it Neapolitan sixth. All right, so that's all it is. In the case of major keys, you're going to flat both the fifth, or you're going to lower both the fifth and the tonic. The third is going to stay the same, okay? And in the case of minor keys, you're going to lower just the tonic. The fifth is already lowered and set to go, all right? And that's all there is to it. It's actually pretty easy. 99% of the time, it's going to be found in minor keys, like I said. And it's also, most often, the next step is going to be for it to go to 5, all right, in both cases. So it's going to go to the dominant chord. Oh, in this case, be lower, minor 5, okay? So in this case, it's going to go to a G, and in this case, it's going to go to an E, right? Lower it down an octave. All right, that's all there is to it. And that's basically what your homework is going to be as well. So yeah, it's called an altered chord just because we alter the tonic, and in the case of in a major, we're going to alter the fifth as well. Yeah, so I think basically it's just to take a minor chord, the minor 2 chord, and turn it major, just to put a bird on it and make it a little more interesting. So you're going to put a flat on it, or lower it a half step, and yeah, that's really all there is to it. So let's listen to some examples of how it actually functions. So in 5.2, and I'm going to put this up on the screen in a second, you get to hear what it's actually supposed to sound like. So give me 1 second. So if we look at example 5.2, which is right at the top of your screen, in the Schubert Die Müller and der Bach, the Miller's beautiful daughter, you'll see we start out with a big D major chord, right? So we've got, right? So our first beat is D major chord, 5 chord, we're in the key of G minor. So we've got, and then we immediately go to G minor. Here's our G minor chord, we get it again. And then, here's our Neapolitan sixth. So it jumps down. So you get this major chord. And then, of course, it goes down to the dominant. So it goes. And finally ends on G. Oops, sorry. Okay? Now if we're going to jump back to that G minor 1 chord again and move to the Neapolitan, you'll hear the major versus what the minor 2 would sound like. So here's G minor chord, and then we go to, all right, so that's to the Neapolitan. Now, if we were to get rid of that A flat and play A natural, it would sound like this. So a G minor chord, and then we hop down, Hear that? So it's a minor 2 as opposed to Neapolitan. We would get minor. So do you hear it? So it would go to the 5 just like normal. Alright, but instead we get this. There we go. Okay, so there are some exceptional uses of the Neapolitan 6th chord, and they are in these figures. We'll talk a little bit about them, not too in depth. So the Neapolitan may on occasion be included in a passage consisting of non-functional harmony. During the classical period, the non-functional harmony often contained a series of first inversion triads in parallel motion. So in this case, you'll see in 5.6 right here, you could just see it's a series of 16th notes going down. So you've got like that, okay? I mean, it just kind of sort of follows in the sequence, and to keep it major, it'll end up as a Neapolitan 6th. Yeah. Also, Neapolitan may sometimes be found in root position, so just know that occasionally you will find it in root position. It's not unheard of. The Neapolitan, especially in the Romantic period, could be preceded by a 5/7 of the Neapolitan or a diminished 6th of the Neapolitan. So do you remember when we did like a 5/5 secondary dominance? It's the same deal, only the bottom note is going to be Neapolitan rather than an actual number. Don't worry too much about that. That's like super romantic music. Don't worry about it too much. Also, the Neapolitan is occasionally found in the major mode. We talked about that. Occasionally you do find it major. Usually it's minor. And then also somewhat rare is a Neapolitan chord that contains a 7th. So that would be like an N. So instead of a 6, it would be a 6/5, right? And we would have a 7th factor in it. So we'd have this E. So instead of this, so we just have our normal Neapolitan chord, right? We'd have the dominant 7th kind of added to it. This does occasionally happen. And then if you take that out of first inversion, put it into first inversion, it's going to sound like that, okay? Occasionally, it'll show up. So just be prepared. It can happen. I think that's it, though. So the other part I want to talk about is how to deal with these in voice leading terms.